Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed participants, welcome to today's highly anticipated webinar on safeguarding your business critical data in Microsoft 365. I'm delighted to be your host. My name is Arthur Suwali. I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed panelists who will share their valuable insights and expertise throughout this session. Joining us today are two industry-leading technocrats who have dedicated their careers to data security and Microsoft 365. Please join me in warmly welcoming our first panelist, Yemurai Mombeshora. Yemurai brings a wealth of experience in information security and specializes in helping organizations protect their critical data assets. With deep understanding of Microsoft 365 and its associated security features, Yemurai is well equipped to guide us through the best practices and practical strategies safeguarding business critical data. Yemurai, would you like to say hi to our esteemed participants?
Thank you, Arthur. Good day, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us on this webinar. I'm very excited, to be sharing all the learnings that we've had in regards to data protection within your Microsoft ecosystem. I'm part of the Cloud and Cybersecurity team, C2 for short, and I'm hoping this is going to be very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yemurai. Our second panelist, Kelvin Galonde, is a renowned technocrat with strong focus on data protection and compliance. Kevin possesses extensive knowledge of Microsoft 365 security ecosystems and has successfully assisted numerous organizations in navigating the complexities of data protection within this platform. With his comprehensive understanding of the latest industry trends and emerging threats, Kevin will provide us with invaluable insights into ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of the business critical data in Microsoft 365. Kevin, please say hi to our participants.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanking you all for coming in, and I do hope this will be an insightful session as we dive into solutions pertaining safeguarding your business critical data in Microsoft 365. All of you, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. So throughout this webinar, Yemurai and Kelvin will shed light on the critical aspects of data security in Microsoft 365. They'll also delve into data classification, access controls, encryption, and data loss prevention, all aimed at empowering you with the knowledge and tools necessary to safeguard your organization's vital information. So we encourage you to participate into this interactive session by posing questions to our esteemed panelists. Together, we'll explore practical solutions and gain deeper understanding of the strategies required to protect your business critical data effectively. So without wasting much time, I'll give the platform to Yemurai to take us through her presentation.
Thank you, Arthur. I'm just going to bring up our presentation for security. Kindly let me know once you can see it.
Yes, we can see the presentation, Yemurai.
Okay, great. I saw I got a thumbs up there. Okay, all right. So I think we'll get straight into it. I'm going to turn off my camera for now, just so that we can then, focus on the presentation. Okay, so I think as Arthur highlighted, the main purpose of this webinar was to share around our learnings in regards to data security, mainly for businesses. I think as we have realized over the past years, everyone is embracing digital transformation. We now have what we refer to as the modern workplace. And what it really speaks into is how the work environment has changed, both from an infrastructure perspective, but also down to an individual level, the end users, who work day in, day out in their Microsoft environment, who use different applications as they go about their work. A lot of changes have come about. And, when we look at these changes, they have really then highlighted the need for security, and security in a different approach from the, traditional way. I think if we all remember back in the days, everything was in your perimeter. I remember when I was in my younger years, I remember we had our server. That is where we had most of our applications running. Our mail server was there. When I came into work each and every day, my PC was there for me to work on. When I went home, I didn't have a laptop to take with me. And as much as I had a cell phone, there was very little I could do besides maybe calling a colleague to discuss work, but not actually actively collaborate or view documents from work. So a lot has really changed. And this now, requires resilience from a cybersecurity perspective. Just to share or to highlight some of these changes and risks that have come about from the way that work has changed for us. So I think I mentioned, bringing your own devices. Nowadays, you can work from your tablet, you can work from your mobile phone or your PC. And by PC, that can be a physical machine that's in the office, which is usually a laptop, or I can take that laptop home with me. And what that means is whether I'm traveling, whether I'm at home, I'm able to get about my work. And this was really accelerated, I think, during the time of COVID. And some businesses now have decided to, make that a permanent change where they give their employees that flexibility to work from home or to come into the office. So once you see people bringing in their own devices, this now means there's a potential threat. Because, as the general user, I don't really think much about the security on my mobile phone, for example. I don't think much about the security on my personal laptop that I might want to use to log into my email or, or do a Teams call and collaborate and share documents. And what this does is it poses a threat to the organization because we are now using our personal devices, which might not be secured, to access company data. All right, so already you now see the reason why we need to look at the issue of data security from a different angle than we used to back in the days. People are now accessing, their data from anywhere, because of this remote work, but also infrastructure, company, businesses, infrastructure, whether it's their servers or applications, they are now sitting in the cloud. People are adopting the cloud. And with this, what that means basically is your users, your devices, your networks, your applications, and other resources within your organization are now accessible from anywhere. Anyone who's got a connection on the internet, if you have not secured these resources and infrastructure, that means there's a potential breach that could occur. And I think just to add to that, because our users are, now using all these applications that are in the cloud, and I think people are more digital savvy. Everyone is looking into Facebook, everyone is shopping online, and the risk that this poses from an end user perspective, when you just look at the stats we're sharing there, is that, for example, 80% of breaches are due to stolen passwords and devices. So if you've lost your phone and there are no controls to wipe out the company data, maybe that you've been downloading or accessing, the credentials that you have for work that are stored or saved on that device, that is posing a threat now to the organization for any actor or bad actor that then gets access to these credentials or gets access to your device. Also, 50% of users, because of this digital maturity that we see in the market, people now are so used to just clicking something. I think some of the stats actually say that users normally click within 5 or 2 seconds, if they see something that catches their interest. So we no longer think. And it's not always on the user, but it's also because as businesses at times, our teams are not educated enough. They're not knowledgeable enough on the issues of cybersecurity. So they will click a link, they will open an email without really looking at some of the things you need to pay attention to. Maybe someone sent you an email and it seems it's from a genuine person who's one of your colleagues, but maybe it's a phishing email, which is basically an email that's been sent to, ask you for your credentials, either telling you your password is about to expire, or you need to sign up for this training. Please enter your username and password for work. So because people will click normally without thinking it through, already you're posing a threat. It's either you're going to bring in some malware into your organization or onto the company device, or you're going to share your credentials, that you normally use to access company data. And I think as much as we have chat, for example, right now we're on a Teams call, and other ways that people now communicate within the business environment, the truth is email is still the top way of communicating. It's the way we communicate with our customers. It's the way we communicate for any formal communication internally in an organization. And for that reason, attackers are actually aware of that. And this is why you'll find over 90% of malware is actually delivered by email, because they know that, everyone is using email, and the likelihood that someone is going to think through before they click is very unlikely. So it's just something to think about. But I think it then, sets the tone to then say, these are some of the challenges that we're facing today. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we've already talked about how the, increase in cloud adoption and solutions has changed the way we need to approach security, but it's also caused a surge in the number of cyber attacks, because this is now the environment most organizations are, doing their day-to-day business on. These are the platforms they're using. So there's a surge in cyber attacks. People are using their personal devices for work, and we're not too sure how safe these devices are. But also as a business, even if you wanted to control, the security environment in your organization alone, the truth is there is a shortage of skills in the market. And when you're looking at cybersecurity, you're looking at security across your identities, your data, your devices, your cloud applications. And for one person to try and keep up with the evolving threats that come up daily, for them to pick up all the signals that are coming up, if they don't have a tool that can do that for them, it means you need more than just one person who is dedicated to security alone. And I think most businesses are not able to do that. So there's a lack of skilled personnel. And, the fact that we've highlighted all these issues, when we then talk into the solutions that Microsoft has, we're going to look at some of the tools that they provide us to make it easier for a business, to kind of monitor these ongoing threats. There's a new threat that comes up every day, but to make it easier to monitor and to act on the threats that are detected. So I think when we were talking about, user behavior in terms of users not being as educated, about the endpoints that our, staff members or team members use to do their day-to-day work, whether they're in the office or out of the office, and how people, can fall for phishing attacks either through an email that's come through, or maybe they're browsing the web and they click without thinking and they share their credentials, or they install software that they think is genuine and yet it's got malware. This just highlights, the entry points that we find all these cyber attacks emanating from. So you've got your applications and you've got your endpoints, the devices we use on a day-to-day basis. You've got the identity. And from an identity perspective, let's think of it as the credentials that someone is using, but also even from an individual perspective, that end user might not be as knowledgeable on, the issues of security. And what this leads to is, normally an attacker, you'll find that what they want is to get a hold of your data, right? Either we're then going to hold you ransom for it, and you have to pay up, or we want to disrupt your data, or we want to share your data so that your company loses the credibility that it has in the market. And I think one thing to also note is when we think about cyber attacks, we're always thinking, I must see something for me to know that there's been a breach within my organization. But what we found is attackers know that the moment they raise a red flag, the moment they bring down a server, or the moment they make something inaccessible, to the administrator or to the end user, that is raising a flag, and they could potentially then, be caught out and be stopped from doing further harm. So what most attackers do nowadays is they just go about within your environment. They've gained access, but all they're doing is mining your data and selling it to someone else who's going to use that data against you later. So I think it's always important for us to remember that it doesn't mean you need to see something. Your server doesn't have to go down. You don't need to see service disruption. You don't need to see your data being out there for you to then know that, okay, potentially there might be a breach. A lot goes on in the back end that we don't see, and it's why it's so important to then have these tools that can look in the back end for us and say, hey, you haven't picked this up, but there's an issue. Someone has breached your perimeters. Okay, so now that we have known that, it's your applications, your endpoints, your identities, these are all entry points. Let's now start looking at some of the solutions that Microsoft has around this. I always emphasize identity, because identity is the one thing. If you can imagine, if someone gains access to an administrator's account because it hasn't been secured or set up correctly from the first time they start or working, or the first day they are given access to certain resources within the organization, this means if there's a breach, that administrator account can basically give access to your infrastructure, to your user management, to your security configurations, basically to everything. You've basically given control over to the attacker to do as they please within your environment. And it's usually very hard to then gain that access back, once you've been shut out as an administrator. And really, identity is the control plane. Nowadays, we have what we call, your single sign-on. And this is a benefit. And as much as it's a benefit, it also poses a really huge risk. Single sign-on helps you to have your users use a single username and password, right? A single set of credentials to access multiple resources within your organization. So if you're using Azure, if you're using Amazon, if you're using Dropbox, if you're using Salesforce, you can link, that single credential to access a number of applications or platforms that you're using within your organization. So yes, it gives ease of access. Someone doesn't have to remember so many, credentials. And from an administrative perspective, it's easier. You're only administrating over a single account per user. But also what that means is if an attacker gains access to that single identity, they are getting access to more than just a single resource. They can now, make their way through all the resources that this user has. So identity is a very important aspect when it comes to security. So looking into some of the solutions that Microsoft has in terms of trying to mitigate some of these threats that we find, they have a number of identity protection solutions that basically give you control in terms of a user's access to verify and say, if there's a person, let's call the person James, for example. If James is trying to access a system, we need to verify that it's James for sure. We're not going to assume, but every time James is trying to access the system, we need to verify and make sure that it's him. And the way that we can do that, I think we talked about phishing attacks. People can guess passwords quite easily, but then Microsoft brings in, solutions, some that are already being used by other vendors, but within the Microsoft environment, you've got solutions like your multi-factor authentication. So in addition to your username and password, we're also going to verify something additional. It's either we're going to send you, a PIN to your phone, a PIN to an app that you have on your phone, just to make sure that if someone who's 1,000 miles away is the one that stole your credentials, they could guess the credentials, but they're not going to be then they won't be able to pass that second line of verification. But let's say that they do. Microsoft also will then look at each and every user. There's certain behaviors. We know what systems you normally use. And this is all done by, artificial intelligence, where it's learning in the background, looking at the systems that you normally access. And if it finds that maybe, someone who's generally in sales all of a sudden is trying to access something in HR, trying to access certain security configurations or servers, that already raises an alarm. And it's what we call a risky user behavior. So it can pick out behavior that is out of the norm for a user and then raise a red flag and, either alert the admin or to actually then restrict that user from doing anything further. You also get insights into, the vulnerabilities that have been picked up. You get recommendations in terms of best practices. Have you configured MFA, which is your multi-factor authentication, as the first line on your identities? And anything unusual that is going on, you'll be able to see these insights on your users, and you get recommendations in terms of the best security practices. Another thing is also conditional access, where you can set conditions. So even from a device perspective, for example, we talked about maybe people using devices that are not as secure. You could say anyone that is using a phone that we can tell, maybe was stolen or, it was jailbroken, let's not allow that phone to access any company data. Don't let any user use such a phone. Or maybe we want your devices to be on a certain version of updates because that is deemed to be more secure. You can also block that. If someone all of a sudden logs in from location A, for example, I log in from Zimbabwe, and 10 minutes later, I'm logging in from the United States of America, that is going to raise a flag. There's no way I could have traveled so quickly in such a short space of time. So there's a lot of intelligence behind those systems from an identity perspective, and these all raise alarms that help you as an administrator or as an organization to pick up any issues and act on them immediately. And now when we look at information protection, because remember, as much as we talk about data, there are various entry points. But from an information protection perspective, what you basically want to do as an organization is to control access to sensitive information. And the types of control that you normally find organizations wanting or that they should be considering is, firstly, is it the right person that has accessed the document? Are there permissions just to view? Are they to write, to rewrite anything, to update? Should this document be allowed to be downloaded by this user? Is this information meant to be shared? If it's meant to be shared, is it meant to be shared between departments? Which departments are those? Is this a document that's meant to be shared externally with a customer or stored onto Dropbox, an application that is not approved within the organization? These are all capabilities that you then find around information protection. And what you are also able to do is to classify your information. Because remember, the only way you can then say this type of document should not be shared, should not be emailed to such and such a person, or should not be shared in Teams, should not be read, it means you must have classified that information to say information that is classified as sensitive can be shared by ABC, but it should never be sent outside of the organization. So you can actually customize according to, your business policies from a data perspective. What do you classify or identify as sensitive information? And you can then actually create these policies and classifications, and you can have your teams either applying them manually when they create a document, or it's something that they can actually have the system automatically pick up. Because at times you will find that users might forget to apply a control, or they might apply a control that is actually very different. I could classify something as personal, and yet it's actually sensitive, just so that I can send it out. But if there's certain terms that we say within our the policies we create, or the classifications we create, we can put automatic classification, where if it picks up that this is a health record, this is an insurance document, this is someone's bank statement, it will automatically apply the correct classification and the right controls to prevent the sharing or viewing of sensitive information. So there's a lot you can do. And I think people always think about okay, it's a document in Word, maybe let me try and attach it on an email. If I can't send it on an email, let me try and send it in Teams. The Microsoft environment has controls within, across a number of applications. So across Teams, across SharePoint, across OneDrive. So even if I was trying to share a sensitive document in Teams, it would be blocked. If I'm not meant to share it with that person, it's not going to be shared. And from a data governance and compliance, you are able to remain compliant if you've put in or created the relevant policies for your business. For example, maybe you're in the finance industry, you're meant to keep certain records for a number of years. You can apply what we call data retention policies, which state the number of years. You can also control whether someone is actually able to delete a document or not. You have capabilities that allow you, maybe when a legal issue arises, for you to be able to search certain documents easier, to prevent people maybe from trying to manipulate those documents or deleting them. So there's quite a lot you can do. And I think because as an organization, we don't always have visibility into all the documentation we have, data governance as well. I think Kevin is going to speak into some of those capabilities later. But Microsoft does offer certain solutions that allow you to, search through your full environment and identify and present to you all the data you actually have in your environment so that you can protect it. Because it's very hard to protect data that you don't have visibility into or that you don't know exists. Okay, so we've talked about, your identity protection, your information protection. And, as we mentioned, our users are not always knowledgeable on security. So let's say, someone does receive that email that's got malware. We need to find a way to prevent users, from then becoming victims to some of these threats once they actually land on their device or within their mailbox. And this is where threat protection comes. Threat protection will, look at whatever it is you're about to click, whether I'm trying to browse something on the web. It will look at that site. Is this a genuine site? Is it a phishing site? What about the email that I've just looked at? Is there something unusual about it? If it's got an attachment, the Microsoft environment will actually look at that attachment first before it allows it to come through to your inbox. So basically, as much as our users, might be vulnerable, we are able to put in certain measures to protect them, from that lack of knowledge that they may have, to say, listen, I'm about to do something that is posing a threat to the organization or posing a threat to myself. So those are some of the solutions that are there as well. And this protection, goes across devices, it goes across your emails as well, where the Microsoft environment will be constantly looking at each and everything that is coming onto your device or coming into any of the applications you use, or, the emails you use or documents that you have. We also mentioned applications. If you've ever thought about it, there's what we call shadow IT, where within a work environment, sometimes either our teams are not well versed with the applications that we have said are these, to say these are the approved applications that one should use at work, and they start using their own documents, sorry, I'm just seeing, I'm seeing some feedback here. Can you see my presentation clearly? Because I can see some chats coming through where people can't see clearly.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, all right, okay. So yeah, on, things like cloud app discovery, you want to have visibility into which applications people are using for work. What are they using them for? How safe are these applications? Are these applications, that are they abiding to the policies that we've set to say these are the applications you should use for work? Because some applications pose a threat. And what Cloud App Discovery does is to actually give you visibility into these applications. And it will also then, from a risk perspective, assess and say, are these deemed to be safe? Or are these kind of high-risk applications, so that you can then make a decision to approve or to deny certain applications that are being used. And these can even be, your applications that the applications we use on a day-to-day. Should someone be able to access, their Word documents, their emails, or certain applications within the Microsoft environment from their device? You can then end up doing so much in terms of controls. So in addition to the visibility, you can then put in, those controls as well. I think we also talked about the endpoints. From an endpoint perspective, how safe are the devices that we are giving employees? Have we configured them correctly? Do we have a best practice? Are we attending to the issues that actually matter from a security perspective? Because even remember when I mentioned you can have someone looking at security issues, but because of the number of alerts that we get, imagine you getting 50, 60, 100 alerts on, different things regarding your endpoints. You want to be able to narrow down as an individual and say which ones are a priority, which ones pose the biggest threat to me. And these are some of the insights that in the endpoint protection solutions from Microsoft will give you. You also get recommendations for best practices. What is it you're meant to lock down? How are you supposed to configure these devices to limit the entry points that an attack could come through, or that malware could, find its way onto your device? So you also then now have, a more secure environment in terms from a configuration perspective and device management perspective. You're able to get recommendations to reduce the possibility of a breach, to have the top recommended things that you should act on immediately. And this works across a number of operating systems, whether you're on Windows, your iOS, your Android. So really, it's not just down to thinking that, okay, it's Microsoft, so it must be a Windows device that they're only going to protect. It protects across a range. And I think previously we only had, such endpoint protection only being for the enterprise type of customers. It's now available also to your business customers through a solution also called Defender for Business. So, these are some of the solutions that we have. I know Kevin is going to speak a bit deeper into some of the solutions that Microsoft has. But, if you're thinking just back to everything that we've covered and you're saying, why should you be considering Microsoft security solutions? If you look at the number of security solutions we've touched on identity, threat protection, your devices, mitigating shadow IT risks. That is a broad range of solutions that other companies right now might be purchasing from different vendors. And what you'll find is in some cases, if you consolidate those solutions because you're able to get them under the Microsoft umbrella, what it does is it gives you simpler management from an administrative perspective, but you could also potentially reduce your costs. You now can tick off your device security, your cloud app security, your threat protection, all those things under one umbrella. And it allows your users who are working from that environment now to also work securely. I always say productivity is not productivity if it's not done securely. You can't say you're being productive if it's posing a threat to your environment. And, we mentioned about the policies that you can customize to your needs, to your security requirements, to your data classifications and access. Who should this type of document be shared with? So we're not giving you something that is rigid, But in the Microsoft environment, you can actually then sit down and say, okay, how do we want to approach this from a governance perspective, and customize that. If it's an industry you're in, you can then look at the industry you're in and say, these are the things we need to tick off and ensure that, you know, our environment is set up in that way. And I think also from a customer and investor confidence perspective, a breach can cause, you know, the market to lose confidence in your business. Customers don't want to find out that their information has been shared and it's available out there for everyone to see. But also what we're seeing is from an investor perspective, a number of investors now first actually ask to see the security plans or governance you know, that you have in place as an organization before they actually say they will partner with you in anything or that they will invest. So it's something worth considering, you know, if you're a business that is looking for funding to partner with people, or just even just to be reporting back in terms of your performance, whether you're reporting back to the board. People want to know that you are doing everything with security in mind because of the risks we find today. And also from an AI readiness perspective, you don't want anyone just taking a document, right, and being able to upload it into ChatGPT. It's a company document. Now you're using your company information to train AI on the web. But if you've put the controls in place, you can put policies in place that say any sensitive information or any company document should never, you know, be uploaded onto the ChatGPT platform. You know, it should never be shared externally. It should never be uploaded into another application that is not approved by the organization. So with that in mind, I'm just closing up now. But, you know, with everything we've spoken about, I just want us to take a moment to think and say, right now, whether, you know, you're an administrator, a business owner, you know, you're part of the management team or an end user, when you look at your identities, all the people that are accessing information within your organization, have you ensured that those identities are protected now that you know the risk it poses? Do you have security governance policies in place, you know, to say what will happen in this case? Are we compliant? And if we're not compliant, what risk is that posing? And for some of us, we're already in the Microsoft environment. We do have licenses. You know, for example, if you have any of the Microsoft E3 or E5, those all have security capabilities, including Business Premium. Are you actually fully maximizing from what we've talked about? Have you ever had a discussion around, oh, so can I protect my identities with the type of license that I have? Because that means you're not maximizing on the investment that you have. All these capabilities are available to you to improve your business, to secure your business, and you might not be making use of them. And as we said, a breach doesn't mean, you know, you're going to see something happening in your environment. It could be happening right now. And that's something to think about. We can't wait and say when something happens, or I will assume I'm safe without putting in the right controls. And how many of us have, you know, a bring your own device environment? How many of us have trained our staff on the cybersecurity risks that are out there? So it's something worth mentioning, just to think about. And, you know, security is something that is new. We have a shortage of skills. But as, you know, the cloud and cybersecurity team, as Liquid Intelligent Technologies, we do have teams that are there to sit down with you, to walk you through this journey, you know, where we say, where are you right now? What does your environment look like? Where are the gaps? If we've identified the gaps, or if we see you have something in place, how can we close the gaps? How can we improve, you know, your secure score within your environment? Let's help you deploy. Let's help you set up. Let's help you customize the security configurations to ensure that they are catering to your security needs. And if you don't have the skills in-house, we provide support services, but we also offer ongoing managed services such that you don't have to be managing these things on your own anymore, but you can have people that are knowledgeable on best practices to do that and carry that load for you. So, you know, with that, I'm hoping that at least now, we know the threats that are out there, that end users as well can pose a threat if they're not knowledgeable, the Microsoft solutions in place, and, that we are here to help you. We do have the capabilities. If you now are thinking, okay, what next? And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Kevin, to then take us through the, best practices when it comes to Microsoft 365 security.
Thank you, Yemurai, for that detailed presentation. While Kevin is putting up his presentation, I would like to encourage our participants to ask any questions that you feel might need to be attended to. We've got a team that will also answer your questions within the chat. And if some of those are not answered, we'll answer all those questions at the end of the session. So feel free to answer any questions that you might need help on. Kevin, it's over to you.
Thanks, Arthur. What a presentation, Yemu. Thank you so much for the high level overview. So on my part, what I'm going to do, I'll simply go into the side of the products. I'll go into the tech and the operations, how we can boost more security in terms of Microsoft 365, what avenues we can use so that we are fully secured. And some of the features are already available on M365, only that sometimes it's an issue of just pinpointing and saying this is what is supposed to be done, this is what's supposed to be achieved. So I'll go deeper into Microsoft 365 security best practices. Arthur, you can confirm if you can see my screen, or even someone that is in there, you can react by a thumbs up if you can see my slide. Thank you.
To go, Kevin.
Thank you. So I think the first thing is, like what Yemu said, identity is actually the control plane. So you realize that it is very crucial to make sure we have done it correct in terms of identity and access management. So what is it mainly? You realize that under identity and access management, mainly you find out that there is multi-factor authentication. So this is just a robust way of trying to make sure it is the right person that is accessing the right resources at the right time, or either at a right location. So it's an extra layer that requires the user to then fully identify themselves. How do they identify themselves? After you have entered your username, after you've entered your password, the next thing is a second layer of authentication, which can be through an SMS, it can be through another email that has been registered, or it can also be through an authentication application, so that which sends passwords or verification codes to make sure that this is the person. So for each and every individual, this is quite crucial. It has to be enabled to make sure it is the right person that is accessing, because the username and the password is not enough in the threat landscape, in the changing of things. So you realize that this is quite crucial. But also the identity and access management doesn't stop to users as well. It goes also to the administrators. So administrator account, this is quite also crucial in terms of, in my experience, I've also seen a lot of administrators, whenever they are asked for multi-factor authentication, the first thing that they do is they click the skip button, which is very not a safe practice in terms of you having an admin account but without a multi-factor authentication. So there is quite also a lot of things that you need to use instead of using custom permissions for administrators. It is actually, you can actually utilize also your Microsoft Entra ID, or maybe commonly known, most of the people know it as Active Directory. The access and the rights that you grant to a certain data and operations is actually quite crucial, and emanating from Active Directory, it makes it more safe. And also another way is the role-based access control. So depending on what the person is doing, the permissions are given according to what the person is doing. This is also quite crucial in making sure your setup is secure. Another feature which is also crucial. Why? Because business, you realize in business, it's email and the content that you are having in the Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Word documents, Excel, PDF, everything that's there, that's meant for business and for collaboration. So you need also to make sure these settings are well in tune in terms of email and content protection. So where do you find these features? You find them in the Security and Compliance Center, where under Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So what is email protection? What it simply does is, before an email arrives to a user, that email is put in a sandbox, and then it is checked if it is the right, and then it's sent. So what it's simply doing is just checks and balances to make sure there is no malware, it's not just spam. So there are spam thresholds that can be put to say, okay, if this email is sent to this number of people, if there are attachments, if there are links, etc. contained. So there is what we call a spam properties that you're actually looking for each and every email. So before they come, remember, the most vulnerable or the greatest point of entry in terms of cybersecurity is through the humans. So this actually helps when it has filtered unnecessary email that is coming in. And also content protection, your documents, your Excel, your presentation can actually come in, or you can download with malicious content, or someone can send you a PDF, or can send you an Excel, can send you a Word with malicious content. So when you have such content protection, it becomes easy. Before even the user opens, Microsoft would have done justice to that. And then advanced threat protection, this is just a way of seeing what's actually coming in ahead, sniffing deeper into the most likely threats that are coming in. So these security features now, they are very quite crucial in your Microsoft portal, in terms of you then be able to activate and be able to fully utilize. Data loss and prevention and encryption. This is quite something that is necessary. You then realize that data loss prevention is very crucial. Why? Because it makes sure that your data that is going out and the data that is coming in, one, it's compliant, and also one, it's safe. So the information is well protected in terms of being discovered, being classified into different labels that you then find in M365, and then they are protected, and then also they are monitored, because it's quite crucial also to make sure that there are audit trails in the movement of data across the organization. Okay, so when the data is moving out, etc. So as an example, there are other features that you find in DLP, like all the attachments, they've got labels, and also even screen sharing. You can actually disable and enable it in that DLP solution for compliance sake. So you realize again, what is also crucial is protection your email, or protecting your users from certain links and certain attachments. So there is what we call safe links and safe attachments, which is also a feature of Microsoft 365 Advanced Threat Protection. So what it simply does, it checks the links. When an email has got a link, what it does, it checks the links, it does the reverse DNS, which goes back to see where it was originating, and then be able to make a decision whether to continue sending it to the user or remove it, or make sure everything is fine before the user can even go to the link. Or when the user clicks it, that has to be checked before you even go to the website. This is quite crucial, because sometimes users, they are not able, we are not able, we don't have that capability to see from just a link to see how bad the link is, what's behind the link, etc. So the safe links checks is quite crucial. The URL is well checked with reverse DNS, and also safe attachment. This analyzes attachments. What does this simply do? It just detonates the attachments into a sandbox environment, and then it does the checking. It's like just like a hospital or maybe a quarantine. I think the word quarantine is quite easy. So that attachment is sent into that quarantine, which is the sandbox environment. When it's sent into that, is then cleaned and seen. If it's not the right thing, it will not continue. So this is quite crucial as part of a practice. This needs to be activated in terms of getting the safe links and safe attachments. All right. As the landscape is changing, you realize that we now have bring your own device policies. Why? We've got our laptops, we've got different devices that we have. We also have mobile devices, your tablets, your iPads, your other Android gadgets, iOS devices. So what do you need to now? You need to then manage each and every device that's coming in to the Microsoft environment, or each and every application that needs to be managed properly. Why? Because it creates some of the applications, they create vulnerabilities. Some of the devices as well, they can create backdoor entries in terms of cyber attacks. So if you can see with Microsoft Intune, this is a very perfect product that you can fully utilize in terms of device and application management. So when it comes to device management, what does it do? It makes sure each and every device that is logging into a Microsoft account is well monitored in the Security and Compliance Center. So when it's monitored, it checks the health set, it checks also the heartbeat, it checks and gives a report in terms of secure score per device. And each and every device that is connected, it also then gives Microsoft Intune in terms of as part of the organization to then update, remove different applications that are in there. So it gives control in terms of devices. That can be your laptops, that can be your mobile devices. It gives full control to the administrators in terms of making sure everything is paged, because there is what we call page management. It is very also quite crucial in devices. You need to have your devices up to date. But just imagine you've got over 1,300 users, 400 users, 500 users, and you want to update. You cannot do that one by one. Intune then comes in to make sure it sends these updates for apps updating. And it's actually very crucial as well in terms of working from anywhere. Why? Because it also gives in a VPN orchestrator that enables you to then access in a safe manner to your resources that are on premise. So this is quite crucial. And also, as I said, app management. This is very crucial. You realize that not every application that you find on the internet is safe to install. So this is also quite crucial to be guarding different machines, guarding different computers, in making sure that they are fully compliant and they are also safe to use. So above device management and above application management, you realize that at the end, the idea is compliance, governance, and information protection. That's where now we see the likes of Microsoft Purview coming in now to just make sure that you are compliant to any regulator. So the good thing also, you realize that the setup in the security center and compliance center, it covers most of the industry standards. So in terms of compliance and governance, it's up to you. You can actually do as much as you want. Even if you want to mix different compliance for different regions, etc., you can actually play around, and it gives you good visibility into all your data across even multi-clouds, etc. So this is also another crucial application that you find. So as I also now try to then come to a wrap up in terms of the products that are available, there is this good also product which we call Microsoft Sentinel. So it's just a simple security operating center that you can create for your devices. Each and every devices will be having something like a keylogger that then reports back to the main center, say these are the activities that are happening, these are the potential threats, etc. So it will be like a dashboard that is actually showing your infrastructure, your devices, your users, your applications, the stage in which each and every application, is it up to date? When was it updated? Even the user that are active, that are not active, devices, the health checks are also done. Even in your infrastructure, it can be routers, it can also be different firewall devices. They'll be then reporting into that. So what does it do? It then detects, it does detection, investigation, response, and threat hunting. Why? Because it's actually looking in for threats that are coming in from different devices. So as an example, you'll be having your devices across Zimbabwe, across Africa, even across the globe. So wherever the device is, it will be sending these alerts, security alerts, and the investigation is done there, and the solution is perfectly done also under Sentinel. Why? Because it also controls what's it has got an AI, it's powered by AI. So it actually, through machine learning, it's able to learn and be able to make resolutions in there. So this is meant for investigation, incident investigation, and responding to incidents. So before even there's human intervention, it will have done the response to a certain incident. And then as you realize that zero trust is also very crucial in whatever you do, whatever you're setting up, whenever you're setting your policies. It can be from your Azure Entra ID or Active Directory. It can be from also different providers that also provide a similar solution. It's quite crucial to have a zero trust orchestration. What does it do? It gives conditions. What does it do? It verifies everything. So it assumes every request is a breach, and it verifies each request as though it's originating from an open network. So what it's simply doing is just saying, okay, you have requested for data, but before we give you data, we need to verify, and it doesn't care whether it's coming from who and what. So this is quite crucial in terms of security. You can then put other measures, like in terms of users and the roles, devices as well, that you need to connect, and also physical location, because we wouldn't expect someone to log in from Borodale, then after 5 minutes, they're also logging in from Blawayo, and after 10 minutes, they're logging in from Paris. So you are now locking in different locations to say, okay, this is how it can be done. This is etc. what you need. So these control measures, they can then enable you to advance more and more and more and more and more in terms of security. So what are the controls that you find there? It just allows blocks access, because this is quite crucial. Or maybe you can choose to say, okay, for other users, there's limited access, or it says, give me MFA. Remember, we spoke about identity and access management, which is quite crucial, being enabled in each and every user. And then other things like, let's reset the password. I'll send a code to your authenticator. I'll send a code to your email. I'll send a code maybe to SMS, something along those lines. So how do we get all these benefits to make sure we are very much secure in our organizations? Yes, most of the organization, yes, you have moved to Microsoft 365, others on Business Basic, others on Business Standard, but you realize now for further security, it's quite crucial to move to Business Premium. Why? And Microsoft 365 E3 and also E5. So these platforms or these packages, they are simply meant to make sure we have fostered security. Why? Because security is quite crucial. Also, as an organization, if you don't take security serious, it's actually a cost to the business. Whenever there is a hacking, or whenever there's a data breach, etc., it actually costs a lot. Even from the previous presentation, we saw that even investors, they're actually worried about the security posture of different organizations, because they would not invest where there is a less security posture. So these packages, they'll bring you to your identity protection that I spoke of, in making sure the right people are getting the right access with conditional access, data protection, which is quite crucial, threat protection, device management, and also cloud app protection. But now when you're on business premium, the cutoff is 300 users, okay? But your users have exceeded. What do? You now go to the E-version, the enterprise version, starting with E3, and it still give you your identity, your data protection, your threat, your device management, and also more of your antivirus as well, in terms of Microsoft Defender. And then also E5 now, it's actually another layer which is meant to foster more security in terms of your application. As you can see, it will have added the likes of automated detection and response from that just one package. DLP will then be added also into the likes of Microsoft Teams, etc. So as your organization is moving into this journey, as you've got a lot of emails, as you've got a lot of content that you are sharing, you're collaborating. Remember, for your business to work, you're also collaborating with externals, and we don't know the environment of the externals, and we cannot control the environment of other organizations. But the best way is to then control our own environment to make sure we are safeguarding. So these are the packages that will then help you align. If you are in industries that are regulated and they've got specific compliance and also data governance rules, these are the crucial points. And then on top of that, not just having the package, we as Liquid, we are also available to assist you in setting up and making sure all these controls, they are moving in the right, with the best practices, that you have your data is fully protected, whether through attachments, when someone is about to send their sensitivity data, how is it protected? One from your organization wants to send maybe to another email provider that is outside the organization. Do we have audit trails of that data that is moving in, moving out? The data that is in motion, is it well protected? So with this, in a nutshell, it is quite crucial for businesses to consider safeguarding their business critical data in Microsoft using these packages, because it's quite crucial in terms of protecting your organization. With this, I'll say thank you. Over to you, Arthur.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Yemurai, for such a detailed presentation. I would like also to shout out to Urine and Azil, who have been assisting in answering the questions while the presentation was flowing. I see in the chat we don't have any presentation, so I would like to give you back your time. If you guys feel like you still need any one-on-one or any detailed information about today's presentation, feel free to reach out to the team or visit our social media. I've just posted the links for our social medias. So we've got a dedicated team that will take you through any of the issues or queries that you want clarity on. So with that being said, we have come to the end of our webinar today. Thank you all for joining, and see you in the next one. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you for your time.